Hey guys, this is a video that I just was checking out, and I would like y'all guys to view it with me as I see it. It was a video just came on with Jay-Z speaking with his voice and talking about our social ills starting back from 84, 85. And, it was real positive to hear his voice at first talking about something positive. It's always good to hear brothers who want to turn around and do the right things, no matter what their history ever was. But I was listening to this, man, and I don't agree with everything. So let's go through it, and we'll ride through it together. See what y'all think.
In 1986, when I was coming of age, Ronald Reagan doubled down on the war on drugs that had been started by Richard Nixon in 1971. Drugs were bad, fried your brain, and drug dealers were monsters. The sole reason neighborhoods and major cities were failing. No one wanted to talk about Reaganomics and the ending of social safety nets, the defunding of schools and the loss of jobs in cities across America. Young men like me who hustled became the sole villain, and drug addicts lacked moral fortitude. In the 1990s, incarceration rates in the U.S. blew up. Today, we imprison more people than any other country in the world. China, Russia, Iran, Cuba. All countries we consider autocratic and repressive.
Now, he was talking about when he was coming of age in 86, I think he said, man, I was like 12 years old in 86. So I was pretty much coming of age also. Not too much far behind you, Jay-Z. But the comments you made about the drug dealers on the streets, and then you quickly switched over to the way that the government dealt with it, and how they made the schools standards low, and all different kind of political failures that would fail the so-called black community eventually. And when it did fail us, we housed more than any other country prisoners from our own country. And you gotta realize America is a pretty big country. And America's a pretty big country, and let's go on, see what they're saying.
Yeah, more than them. Judges' hands were tied by tough on crime laws, and they were forced to hand out mandatory life sentences for simple possession and low-level drug sales. My home state of New York started this with Rockefeller laws. Then the feds made distinctions between people who sold powder cocaine and crack cocaine, even though they were the same drug. Only difference is how you take it. And even though white people used and sold crack more than black people.
Now, crack and cocaine is not the same drug. It is not the same drug. Cooking up crack cocaine is a lot more dangerous, and they put a lot more stuff in it. And they cook it up with chemicals in it. I remember they used to put battery acid, some other crap in it, just to make it, tear your brain cells up, I guess. But crack is horrible, man. Crack is like, I remember it's just like mix anything with crack, and next thing you know, you got something that look like crack, but you got all kind of crap in your stuff, man. And it ain't even a pure drug, So if you want to snort cocaine, it's nothing like doing crack. That's why they gave you more time doing crack. It had nothing to do with race as a whole, and also there's no excuse for anyone to smoke crack.
Somehow it was black people who went to prison. The media ignored actual data to this day. Crack is still talked about as a black problem. The NYPD raided our Brooklyn neighborhoods while Manhattan bankers openly used coke with impunity. The war on drugs exploded the U.S. prison population disproportionately, locking away black and Latinos. Our prison population grew more than 900%. When the war on drugs began in 1971, our prison population was 200,000. Today it is over 2 million. Long after the crack.
Once again, when he was saying how there was in Manhattan working. You know, they was working, making laws and using cocaine, but in Brooklyn, they was on that crack. And it was a totally different situation. So totally different drugs. Jokers in Brooklyn couldn't even work. Jokers was on the street pushing carts around in Brooklyn. You know? So we can't try to bring some race out of this because people were smoking crack.
Era ended, we continued our war on drugs. There were more than 1.5 million drug arrests in 2014. More than 80% were for possession only. Almost half were for marijuana. People are finally talking about treating addiction to harder drugs as a health crisis. But there's no compassionate language about drug dealers. Unless, of course, we're talking about places like Colorado, whose state economy got a huge boost by the above-ground marijuana industry. A few states south in Louisiana is still handing out mandatory sentences for people who sell weed. Despite a booming and celebrated 50 billion legal marijuana industry, most states still...
Now those dummies in Colorado and wherever else they letting drugs be illegal or legal are going to learn, and they're going to see what it does to a society. And most of them are probably family members anyway. I mean, how many people out there? You know what I'm saying? It ain't like they got a whole epidemic of people on the street hustling. You know, it's not a big issue like that far as social yet. But if they keep having that marijuana and easy to get in the hands of children and crazy people, you'll see.
Still disproportionately hand out mandatory sentences to Black and Latinos with drug cases. If you're entrepreneurial and live in one of the many states that are passing legalized laws, you may still face barriers participating in the above-ground economy.
Man, Brooklyn used to be such a great place for Americans, new Americans coming to America from other cultures, you know, so that they can melt in the melting pot. You know, now when you got a system of crack cocaine taking it and killing themselves and going against that, what they was built upon, you know, it actually was a mercy for somebody to start getting serious with this drug epidemic. Crack was a whole new monster, man, whole nother thing. You know, heroin was pretty bad, but crack took people, made people crazy, man. Made people crazy. Made mothers leave their daughters for that crack. Mothers leave their children, man. You know what I mean? Stop eating food for crack. You know, so I don't know why Jay-Z crying.
Venture capitalists migrate to these states to open multi-billion-dollar operations, but former felons can't open a dispensary. Lots of times those felonies were drug charges, caught by poor people who sold drugs for a living, but are now prohibited from participating in one of the fast.
I think everybody who sell crack cocaine in their community should be murdered. I think they should be killed. I think they should be set up for the death penalty. Because that is the most disgusting. And not, don't get me wrong, not for selling the crack, but for selling it and knowing what it actually did. And knowing what the dangers did. Knowing what the dangers of it and how it turned out a whole country. No, because I told y'all be quiet. Be quiet. So the whole thing is,
this is growing economies. Got it? In states like New York, where holding marijuana is no longer grounds for arrest, police issue possession citations in Black and Latino neighborhoods at a far higher rate than other neighborhoods. Kids in Crown Heights are constantly stopped and ticketed for trees. Kids at dorms in Columbia, where rates of marijuana use are equal to or worse than those in the hood, are never targeted or ticketed. Rates of drug use are as high as they were when Nixon declared this so-called war in 1971. 45 years later, it's time to rethink our policies and laws. The war on drugs is an epic fail.
No, the war on drugs is an epic fail because of so-called black people. they still selling drugs to this day. Don't make no sense. Jay-Z, you claim to sell crack. You should be repenting like a mug. You should be doing a whole lot to be stopping that and bringing people to the level of you so they can understand that crack ain't the way. Peace. This is crazy.